you know, because Joe Rogan has his little sidekick, Jamie, that does all the technical stuff for him. I'm my own Jamie. All right, hello everyone. This is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Do Rebel, and welcome to today's show, episode number 127 of the Jeet Kune Do Dialogues. So, as you're logging in, if you'd be kind enough to say where you're logging in from, hit the like button, and feel free to continue doing so throughout the dialogue. Also, be sure if you're catching the final edit video over on the YouTube, when you're there, hit the subscribe, like the video, and hit the notification bell as well. And if you'd like to support my efforts, head on over to jkdrebel.com, click on the Rebel Gear link, and check out what we have to offer. But of course, as always, the best thing you can do is to share the video, spread the word, talk about the Jeet Kune Do Dialogues. Okay, so today, making his third appearance on the Jeet Kune Do Dialogues, right? He's always one of my most popular dialogue partners. The YouTube episodes with him are always among the highest viewed. I checked for our very first time together, Richard, episode number 46. Yeah. Back in February of last year. That's got close to 1,400 views on it. Wow. So yeah, without further ado, all right, Richard Torres, welcome back to the Jeet Kune Do Dialogues. How's it going?
Very good.
Yeah,
going well. Yeah, staying busy like always.
Okay, but have you reopened yet? Have you guys gotten permission to reopen yet?
No, not in New York. No. So we're doing virtual classes.
Okay. Was that a new thing for you, or were you already familiar with like the online platforms and what have you?
No, it was a new thing. My student Vincent set things up for me.
I was just going to say that. Yeah, he's your tech guy.
You know, yeah. And we actually do 2 classes a week. We do one with the reading a Tao, and then another one a physical class where we're teaching, having lessons.
Okay.
So
the reading of the Tao, huh?
Yeah, because we don't get much of a chance to do that in the school because we're constantly training.
Yeah, you're always beating the crap out of each other.
So we took a negative and made it a positive, you know.
I hear
now
you.
We have a chance to just do the, some of the reading and understand the intellectual aspect of the art instead of just the physical.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So for those of you who, I'll give you some what they call inside baseball. So we did our tech test just to make sure that everything was working here, and I was trying to show Sifu Richard how stuff works. So I'm going to try to do something. I'm going to try to play you something here. Usually when I try to play video, it messes up. But let me see if I can pull this off, right? Because I want everybody to see this.
Right off the bat, I do not like you very much, and here's why. Right?
Sorry. Well, this is the first one.
Why. If I took my life savings and I started now trying to duplicate all the stuff that you...
Do you remember that?
Yeah, sure.
Right, because I go,
my collection. You're talking about my collection, yeah.
Right, yeah. But I go, I don't like you very much, and the look on your face, right?
I said, whoa.
Right?
Yeah.
It was priceless. But yeah. So when I was researching for today, I was like, you know what? Let me show him that clip from over a year ago. But so hey, how often do you add stuff to the collection? I mean, whenever somebody puts something out, or
whenever it's something interesting, you know.
Okay.
Like I just got this from my student. These 2 guys here.
He made those?
No, he built them for me. I had them for years and in boxes, and they were models. And I don't build models, but his name is Saul Alvarez, and he's actually an expert in building statues, not just Bruce Lee statues, but a lot of other statues.
Okay.
And he took those 2 guys and brought them to life. You know,
with a name like Saul Alvarez, he could be a Miami guy.
Yeah, I could be a Cuban guy too. yeah. Right? So he did his thing. And actually, that's called Canelo Alvarez's name too, Saul Alvarez.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the boxer. Yeah.
Okay. Hey, listen. Are those 2 videos or books on the top shelf behind you too?
These are Japanese books.
Ah.
I like them because they actually say the Tao Jeet Kune. They don't say Jeet Kune Do.
Right. Yeah. Okay. All right. So now, for the people who did not watch Vincent's, Vincent did a really good job with you with the two-part history of Jeet Kune Do a few weeks ago. So for the people who missed that, explain to them what you just said there, the Tao of Jeet Kune. Explain to them the historical significance of that.
Because Bruce Lee was trying to rename his art once he started sparring, and in his daytimer in January of ’67, he wrote in Cantonese, the Tao of Jeet Kune, and this was the way he could explain it in English, the Tao, because the Tao means way,
right,
of Jeet, which means intercepting or stopping, and the Kune is fist. So literally, if you translate Tao of Jeet Kune, it says way of intercepting fist or way of stopping fist. So
right,
that's what he was calling his art until he was going to be interviewed in Black Belt magazine, and suddenly he decided to change it to Jeet Kune Do and put the Do at the end instead of the Tao at the beginning. Because the Tao and Do mean the same thing. That means way.
Right. Yeah. So he wanted it to sound more familiar to the people at Black Belt magazine, huh?
Well, everything has Do, Kendo,
right,
Karate Do,
right,
Judo, Aikido, Taekwondo, Tangsu Do.
Yeah.
And then his art was called the Tao Jeet Kune. Didn't have that flair,
I wish he'd have kept it like that.
The Jeet Kune Do, at least makes it sound like a martial art. Even though some people think it's doing Taekwondo.
Right, because technically the book the book then is the way of the intercepting fist.
The book, yes.
Right.
the way of the way. Well, the Tao Jeet Kune Do, the way of the stopping fist way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all right, so we got that piece of history out. And again, inside baseball, Sifu and I decided we would tackle a couple of the ongoing online discussions, because no matter how often we talk about stuff, whether it's on a dialogue or I do it on the broadcast or what have you, there still seems to be a ton of people out there that need to be informed and educated and alerted about stuff and what have you. But so before we get to specifics, I wanted to get your thoughts on, or your definition of what's the best way to, the current problem with JKD. I mean, I know there's more than one problem, but if I say to you, well, what are your thoughts on the current problems with Jeet Kune Do? Like, what comes to mind for you?
I think there's a lot of misinformation out there, especially now because of the Google and Facebook, and the newer generation is getting inundated with so much misinformation. It's unbelievable. And then when you try to correct them, they all get get pissy on you. But yeah, there's a lot of misinformation, and then of course there's stuff that was put out there and people believed it was so until somebody comes along and says, well, that's not really the way it was. Like when we talk about this sign here, for how many years that we think that this was Bruce Lee. Yeah. And now we realize that it wasn't, so I mean that's just an example. But
hey, let's break that down. Not the issue about where it came from. I mean, we can get to that and what have you. But I wanted to ask you about that. So the very first part of the sign says, the truth in combat is different for each individual in this style.
Let me put it okay.
Okay.
There it
is. Yeah. What does that mean to you? The truth in combat is different for each individual in this style.
First of all, it's not a style, it's an art. But I think, you have to learn the art as a complete art, learn the total art. And then once you learn the total art, then you're going to evolve into what works for you. Because each individual, I always ask my students, are we individually the same, or are we individually different? You know, and I guess sometimes, you know, half of the guys say, oh, we're the same. The other guys, oh no, we're different. You know, which means we're the same because we all have 2 arms and 2 legs. You know, and we're human beings as far as the body's concerned. But then we're different because there's people that are taller, shorter, slower, faster, stronger, weaker.
Right.
You know, so the answer is obviously we're both. So I think when we learn Jeet Kune Do, we want to learn a total martial art system, and then from that system, you know, see what works for us and continue, you know, and basically create our own personal style, you know, but not style the way we think of style, but style as far as what works for you.
Well, because, so when you use the word style, what would be your definition of that word?
Like Muhammad Ali has his own style of boxing. Mike Tyson has his own style of boxing. Joe Frazier has his own style of boxing, but they're all doing boxing.
Right.
So, and they stay within the perimeters of boxing. So I think we need to stay within the perimeters of Jeet Kune Do. And if we're going to still train in Jeet Kune Do, yet see what in Jeet Kune Do works for us the best,
right,
and continue from there. The problem, I think, also is, and I always write this down sometimes, and I warn people. I tell them that instructors should not just teach their preferences, because then their students only know their instructor's preferences. They don't know the total art. You see, and obviously, you know, you have to know the total art, and then pick out your own preferences as far as that's concerned. But as an instructor, should be teaching the art as a whole.
Yeah, but then that means that you as an instructor, you got to be willing to work hard too.
Of course. You know, but you can't teach just what works for you, and teach your students, this is what works for me, and this is what you guys are only going to learn. I'm not going to teach you anything else, you know, because now your students are limited to your preferences. Okay. And they might have been better in other things too that you didn't teach.
All right. So now, okay. So then the next part, right? Research your own experience. Does that have a meaning for you?
Yeah, you know, researching obviously is going beyond just doing the physical of the art, and researching, you know, what Bruce Lee wrote, what things are, you know, why are we doing certain things in the art, you know, and understanding that even the history of the art too is important, you know, because it's very easy for someone to say, oh, we don't do that anymore, and you have to ask, well, why not, you know, or should we be doing it anymore, you know? So researching is very important. Is going beyond just going to the school and doing your 2 hours of training, you know, whatever, every other day or whatever. So you have to go beyond just the physical, and also do some reading and understand what's, you know, the art itself, to make sure that also that you're not being taught the incorrect stuff too, you know, because, you know, many times, you know, you will read things, and it's happened to me, you know, I've gone to nucleus seminars, and certain people have been teaching something. I go, that's not really the way Bruce Lee taught that, you know. But respectfully, you don't say anything, but, you know, keep it to yourself. But you can pick it out very quickly, because you know, you've done your research. That's what I mean, research your own experience, you know.
Do you think that there's too much of that in Jeet Kune Do, where you have to be respectful in what it is that you're saying?
I think you should be respectful still, you know. Just because you disagree with someone doesn't mean you have to disrespect them. Right. I try to be respectful to, you know, everyone, even when I disagree with them. Yeah. You know, I just don't like being pushed, because you push me, because I'll counterpunch you. Right. You know. Okay. Don't start with me, because I can counterpunch very well. You know. But I don't start with anyone though.
Yeah. So now we get into the meat of the controversy and what have you. Absorb what is useful. Give me your breakdown.
Absorb what is useful. Well, first of all, as a student, you I don't think at the beginning stage you can decide what's useful and what's not useful. But as you're being taught, you're going to see if it works for you or not, as far as if you can do it. For example, if you're teaching someone a side kick to the stomach as a stop kick or something, some people can't even bring their leg up there. So you have to, for them, that's not a useful technique because they don't have that flexibility. And no matter how much you try to make them flexible, they're not gonna, they won't get it. They won't get that flexible. So when you're teaching them that, obviously they have to change it a bit to maybe kick a little lower, maybe to the knees or something instead of a stomach, because what's not useful for them, what's useful for you may not be useful for them. So absorb what is useful will probably mean that, if it works for you, you learn it and see if it works for you, and if it works for you, you take it. But if you see because of your body type or because of your attributes, it's not going to work for you, then then you do the next one, reject what is useless. Because again, here we are, we're structurally the same, and then we're structurally different.
Right.
Okay. So that's why Bruce Lee would say you can't put everybody in that same mold.
Right.
But you can expose them to a lot of things.
Yeah.
Expose them to see what works for them, and then go from there.
Right. All right. And then, which the tenet, as I call it, right, that is probably the most controversial. Add what is specifically your own. What's your take on the meaning behind that?
It's funny because you say that. When I saw that in this book, where is it? Here we are. This is Dan's book, hardcover. And I saw that, here it is, way back then.
Right.
Where are we? Here we are. There we are. There we are. When I saw that back in 1976, that's when this book came out.
Yeah.
I kind of wondering, the adding thing. Because if you're learning a total martial arts, how much more do you need to add? This is my take, obviously.
Right.
I would have liked if it said evolve to what is specifically your own. Evolving is different from adding. Because in this art, like Bruce Lee says, it's not a matter of adding more, but hacking away the unessentials, which means to refine what you've learned, not continue learning. Imagine a boxer learns 5 punches from the coach.
Right.
And he does the 5 punches, and he goes, "Okay, coach, I learned those 5 punches. Teach me 5 more so I can get better." They'll look at him and say, "What are you, stupid?"
Right.
Come on, man. Take those 5 punches, hit the heavy bag, work on speed in front of the mirror. Learn to move around with your footwork and use it while you're moving. The whole work. So what he has to take those punches now and refine them.
Yeah.
So eventually he can master them. So it's not a matter of him adding more punches, but him refining it by getting rid of all the bad habits that those punches do.
So that is then the only connotation for the word add that you, when you read that, your take on it is like literally the idea of increasing the amount, adding on. That's your take on it?
Yeah, that's why I say it's better if it would have said evolve.
Right.
To what is specifically your own. Because to me, Jeet Kune Do is a total art.
Right.
It's a total martial arts, a total martial arts science.
Yeah.
So if you're learning a total martial arts science, then how much more do you need to add? And that's why I always write, when does it stop being when do you stop adding that it stops being Jeet Kune Do,
Yeah.
How much do you add?
Right. Yeah, no, I get it. But you know what? I see now why, and this is something that you and I have talked about before as well. I see why some people find out that the sign and the origin of the sign is actually in a sano, and that it never hung in Bruce Lee's school. And as recently as 3 days ago, we were going through this with somebody on Facebook, right? So Bruce Lee never said those words. Two, the sign never hung at any of Bruce Lee schools or what have you. When people hear that, I think that some people go, oh, so this is what Inosanto used as permission to add stuff to Jeet Kune Do.
Well, it actually was a dedication that Bruce Lee wrote.
Right.
So we know that that it wasn't something as far as in regards to Jeet Kune Do, but something in regards to reading a book.
Yeah.
You know? And add what is specifically your own means that marginal notes on the book. You know, you underline things. So absorb what is useful in the book, reject what is useless in the book, add what is specifically your own in the book. Like, because that's what Bruce Lee did for his library. You know, he basically he basically took books and wrote. Well, let's see if I have an example of one here. Here you got the fencing book that Bruce Lee took from his brother.
Right.
And this is stuff that he would do in the books, you see?
Yeah.
He add what specifically was his own.
Yeah. Well, and in doing that, see, so now to my way of thinking, making your notes in the book and what have you, right, is part of absorbing what is useful.
Or elaborating on what's useful.
Yeah. My stepdaughter said to me once that the best part of a book that she came across in my library, the best part was my notes.
Yeah, it makes it interesting when you read somebody's notes on a book that you're reading, because it tells you where his mindset is as he's reading the book. Yeah. You know, so I mean, if you look at my Tao, every single page is all in red. You know, I mean, it's just
but that's your note-taking copy of the Tao.
Yes,
that's
yeah, exactly. And it's, there's a lot of notes. Yeah. So you know, sometimes you read even the Tao, and you don't understand what it means, and then you can elaborate and put marginal notes and explain to yourself what it means. You know?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think that the people who believe that add what is specifically your own and think that somehow Inosanto took that to mean add Kali, add Silat, add Muay Thai, add Savat, what I call the associated disciplines, right? Anybody who thinks that that is what he did, he actively sat down and thought, okay, I'm going to add all these things and call them Jeet Kune Do. Because the other thing that we were talking about is the Facebook discussion where it was like, why does Inosanto, what did it say? Why does Inosanto connect these arts to JKD when Bruce never trained them?
Right.
You know, right? And again, okay, so did you, I don't remember if you answered that one. Did you answer that one?
I did answer that too.
What did tell me again what it was you said?
I said, well, they were saying that it went down to the point where they showed Bruce Lee doing some stick fighting. Into the dragon, the dungeon scene, and they were asking,
right.
Oh, Bruce Lee did Filipino martial arts, and I said, can he just be doing stick fighting without giving it a name?
Right.
You know,
right.
And that's what people tend to do. You know, if I do a hook kick with my toes, they're going, "Oh, you're doing Savat." No, I'm doing a hook kick with my toes. You know.
Yeah.
You know, it's
I mean, yeah, because sometimes people want to whittle stuff down to like the finest point, right? So that if Bruce Lee does double stick, then it can't be that, okay, so maybe Inosanto showed him double stick and he was like, I think we could use that in the movie. Instead, it becomes, Bruce Lee studied stick fighting. You know, kind of like, so for example, when they say that Bruce Lee studied with Jean LaBelle, right? Yeah. What does that mean? What that he was a student at Jean Lebel's school for like 5 years?
No, that never happened. Of
course not.
No,
of course not. It was never like that, right? But everybody takes their current way of thinking and they apply it to 50 years ago, that it must be the same way.
Yeah.
You know, so that today, if you and I decided to enroll at a jiu-jitsu school and just be quiet and be a student at a jiu-jitsu school for as long as we decide to be, when they hear that, you know, and that's the modern way of doing it. When they hear that Bruce Lee trained with Jean Lebel, they figure it must be something exactly like that.
No, well, that never happened though.
Yeah, no.
Right. I mean, I asked people what style did Bruce Lee use when he did the bow staff and Into the Dragon on the dungeon scene. Nobody questions that one, right? Nobody says, "Oh, he did Okinawan bow staff for the dungeon scene." No, he didn't. He did both. He just did the bow staff, express himself the way it's done. You know, I mean,
yeah, but okay, why is it? Why do you think people are so prone to doing that? If Bruce Lee picks up the staff and they know that the bow is part of Okinawan weaponry, why can't they think in terms of, well, he devised a fight scene and he wanted a long weapon for the fight scene, so, you know, whatever. Why do you think they do that? Why are people so prone to, they have to associate one thing with one thing instead of thinking of it in an expansive way? Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, yeah, it does, because what they're looking is to look for the style that it came from, without realizing that when you understand the roots, you understand the blossoming.
Right.
So he understood the movement, human movement already, you know, so he can take a bow staff and choreograph a fight scene without ever doing Okinawan bow staff, you know.
But and that's exactly what Inosanto said about him. You could show him something, right? And then like 2 days later, he's got like 5 variations on it.
Well, yeah, you know, the problem, you know, with Dan was when he was doing seminars, the guys that were bringing him in for seminars were saying, you know, oh, here comes Dan Inosanto, we're gonna do a Jeet Kune Do seminar, and everybody signs up for the Jeet Kune Do seminar, right? And then Dan comes in and he's doing, you know, stick fighting or whatever, and they all wondering, well, man, where's the Jeet Kune Do? You see, but obviously it was advertised as such, and then you got a different program. So it basically got him in trouble as far as what the consumer was concerned, because here people drove an hour or 2 hours to go to the seminar to learn from Bruce Lee's student the actual Jeet Kune Do, and what they got was Filipino martial arts from there, and it was advertised something different.
So that's an unfortunate turn of events is how I refer to it, because it didn't clear things up at all, you know. Right.
And a lot of people started, even, you know, the next generation down, started saying, you know, well, what we're doing is Jeet Kune Do concepts, is Bruce Lee's philosophy into all these styles, you know, all these arts.
So that was one of the things that we were going to touch on, right? The whole idea about Jun Fan Gung Fu being the physical art and Jeet Kune Do being the philosophical art.
Yeah, and you still see it constantly on Facebook.
Yeah, you know? Which I think is interesting, because what's the name of this? This does not say Jun Fan the art, right, and Jeet Kune Do the philosophy of Bruce Lee. It says Jeet Kune Do the art and philosophy. Yeah,
of Bruce Lee.
So where does that come from?
I think it came from Dan, that when he was teaching. I think he went back, and he called, because that book is 1976,
right?
And now you're talking about later on, when the Filipino Kali Academy opened up, and a lot of the things started changing a bit, and I think Dan went back and started calling the physical art Jung Fan Gung Fu, and then said the way of approaching other arts and researching them and looking into them, and it's more of a concept thing. In other words, the way Bruce Lee would research things, and he called that Jeet Kune Do concept. Right. So now you have the name Jeet Kune Do concepts as a way of learning other arts and philosophy, according to Dan, and the physical art, the Jung Fan Gung Fu. So I think he did that. I think it was in the 80s or something like that, and then all the students started going around and saying, physically Jeet Kune Do doesn't exist, because I heard that so many times back then. Yeah, they say Jeet Kune Do does not exist. It's just a philosophy.
Right.
And what you're doing, what was referred to later on in the 90s as the original Jeet Kune Do, was referred to by them as the Jung Fan system. Yeah. So then it was broken into pieces. The Jung Fan kickboxing, the Jung Fan trapping, the Jung Fan Gung Fu. So but Bruce Lee himself evolved from the Jung Fan method to Jeet Kune Do. So Bruce Lee called his art Jeet Kune Do.
Right. Yeah.
And then later on, Dan went back and called it the Jung Fan, and called the method of exploring other arts the Jeet Kune Do concept way.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, I again, right? It's important that we keep talking, because the more that we straighten stuff out, then the more people that get the correct information. Because I mean, is there, right? So again, for people who don't know, Ted Wong is your main source of JKD. Dan Inosanto is my main source of JKD, right? Does this happen in, let's call it the Ted Wong JKD world as well, where people are confused about what he said, what he meant, what he did, what he didn't do, what he taught, what he didn't teach?
As far as Ted Wong's concerned?
Yeah.
Not as much. I think the guys that were there in the early years, in the 90s, 93, 94, 90, 95, got a little more vast education, I would say, from Ted Wong than the later years, because Sifu Ted, like, for himself, he was super light on his feet. He had great footwork,
right?
And he liked to, punch and kick. He wasn't the kind of guy that was going to jump in on you and start trapping you and come into a closer range and start hitting you there. But so I think the early years we got a little bit more vast of knowledge as far as the art was concerned.
Yeah.
Because at that time he was teaching us, I would say the total art. We learned a lot of things from, it's sacrilegious now to say it, but at that time, we were learning how to trap, how to elbow, how to knee and stuff like that. And then later on, he kind of refined it a bit for himself. And it worked really well for him too. He was so fast.
Yeah.
And very powerful too.
He started teaching in the 90s, like the seminar stuff?
I started training with him in 93, but I believe he did a seminar earlier than that too.
Okay.
With Cass Magda and Chris Kent at Magda's Institute.
Oh, at the Institute, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, very open-minded. But, like anything else, you start refining yourself and you want to refine your students too. So that's the direction he went with it,
Yeah. So now, because I remember my introduction, I mean, I'd seen Ted Wong since the early days, but in terms of like actually hearing from him my introduction was when he wrote classical JKD column, right, for Inside Kung Fu. And you know, I say that's where the controversy between original and concepts, that's kind of like where that started, because
I think Inside Kung Fu gave it that name, not him.
Right.
You know,
JKD, he never called it original.
Because later on, it was just known as the original art, you know.
Right. Yeah. So yeah. And again, right, I think that a lot of people ended up turning it into a thing that he probably was never interested in turning it into. You know what I mean?
As far as what?
In as far as setting the record straight, like it's like.
Well, when he came out in Black Belt magazine, he said he was going to teach Bruce Lee's original art because he felt that the art was disappearing. You know, and obviously because it could be whether it's the next generation of dance students or whether it was the magazine pushing it or whatever. But you know, they were showing stuff that was, you know, under the Jeet Kune Do title.
Right.
And you were seeing things that you shook your head and says, that's not Jeet Kune Do, you know, what are they doing, you know?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, remember that whole idea of that Bruce Lee used 26 different arts to create Jeet Kune Do. I mean, that stuff ran in the 90s.
Yeah.
And everybody believed it. Or how about the one that Bruce Lee taught 3 different arts? You know, because there were 3 different certificates.
Because there were 3 certificates, right? Yeah.
And Bruce Lee taught 3 different arts, which again wasn't true. A guy who teaches simplicity is not going to teach 3 different arts, you know?
Right. But see, but again, I think that because people they have to do the label thing, right? They can't settle for I don't know as being the answer, because if you don't know, you don't know. They kind of have to have an answer. So now if we see that there was a Jun Fan Kung Fu certificate, it's like, well, when did he teach that? Right? Because it's not a certificate, right?
It's not a Jun Fan Kung Fu certificate. It's a Jun Fan Kung Fu Institute certificate.
Right?
So it's 3 different certificates.
Right. Yeah.
So,
but okay. But so now answer this then. What was being taught in Seattle and Oakland and then LA before the coining of the term Jeet Kune Do? Did anybody have a name for anything, or was it nameless?
No, Bruce Lee used to always call it Kung Fu.
Right.
I mean, he was so pro Kung Fu, pro Chinese Kung Fu, you know. In Oakland, they started calling it the philosophical art of self-defense.
Right.
You know,
is that where the scientific street fighting thing happened to, or was that later?
No, most of it. I mean, as scientific street fighting, you know, to Bruce Lee, the whole Jeet Kune Do was a street fighting. You know, I mean, not Jeet Kune Do, excuse me, Kung Fu. Okay. But in Seattle, it was considered Kung Fu, and by the time it went to Oakland, it was considered the philosophical art of self-defense, Chinese Kung Fu.
Right.
Then by LA, it was called, you know, the Jun Fan method, because now there was elements of boxing and fencing in it. So there was it wasn't just limited to Kung Fu. And then once the sparring started getting into it and everything, then Bruce Lee just called it Jeet Kune Do.
Right. But yeah, see, so I think that, you know, if you do the revisionist history, right? So it's like if when you and I are gone and somebody has the task, you're a popular guy. Somebody has the task of chronicling your history. There was the era in your garage, right? Then there was the era of the school you know, like you've been in one location all this time?
Now, yes, 25 years.
Okay, right. And before that?
My garage.
Right, exactly. You see? So that's how, after you've gone, when they start chronicling your history, they come up with two eras. So then they say, well, in the garage era, he taught this. And then in the school era, he taught this or what have you. I think when people see this Junfan Gung Fu, this Junfan method, Junfan Gung Fu Institute and what have you, can that be where they get the idea from?
Well, in hindsight, you can look at that and say that, yes, this is what was taught. This is what was taught at this era, and that was, you know, as, in hindsight, looking back, you know, like what they say, hindsight is 20/20, you know, because you can now see it. Yeah. But when it was happening, it was evolving. It was evolving into Jeet Kune Do. So it wasn't like the guys in Seattle only had this, because Bruce Lee tried to keep everybody in touch of what he was doing. You know, Taki and James Lee.
Right.
And if you were under him, then whatever he was calling his art, that was the name of the art you were learning, you know?
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, hey, did you ever hear whether or not Bruce Lee was a task master? So, for example, like you just said, if whatever he called the art, if you were studying with him, that's what you called it. Was he like very permissive? You know, it's like, okay, well, you could do this and you could do that. However it is you want to do it is fine with me.
As far as the two instructors was concerned?
Yeah, right. The people he put in charge.
Taki and James?
Yeah.
No, I think he tried to keep them updated as much as he could on what he was doing with the art. You know, like when, you know, that whole idea of, you know, when he tells Taki Wing Chun is out, you know, I mean, Chi Sao is out, excuse me.
Yeah,
you know, everybody went crazy. Oh, he told him Chi Sao was out, you know, that means trapping is out, you know, and it went, you know, left field with that, you know. Yeah. But in actuality, is because, you know, Bruce Lee was always saying that Chi Sao was the nucleus of the art. He felt that sensitivity was super important. And he always said that Chi Sao was the nucleus of the art when he was teaching, all the way to the Junfang method. But once they started sparring, full contact with full contact equipment, he said Chi Sao is not the nucleus of the art. Sparring is, you know.
Yeah. So then, so in this book, then, where Wing Chun is referred to as the nucleus, Jun Fan is referred to as liberation, and then Jeet Kune Do is referred to as freedom. You agree with that breakdown?
Yes and no, you know, because again, that's looking at it later on, you know, and looking back in history and say, okay, you know, that's what this was, you know. But I think the sparring had a lot to do with why Bruce Lee changed the name of the art and changed what was the nucleus of the art. Because you know, coming from that Wing Chun background, he thought sensitivity was so important.
Right.
And then when he did the sparring, you know, with the guys and their full contact sparring, he realized, you know, sparring is more important than that whole sensitivity idea. It's not that, you know, sensitivity is not important, but the sparring took a bigger preference because it showed what worked and what didn't work, you know, under pressure.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
how much Wing Chun have you done?
I learned some Wing Chun very early in the, I would say probably in the 70s.
Okay. Okay.
And but I did it to understand the Jeet Kune Do, you know,
is it an absolute necessity?
No, because unless you know, depending on the instructor that you have, the instructor you have can teach you how to do trapping hands without going through the whole Wing Chun curriculum. And actually, the the Jeet Kune Do trapping is a little different from the Wing Chun trapping anyway. So
right.
So
explain that, because people might hear that and wonder what you mean by that.
Well, the structure is differently. You know, you're not in the Wing Chun stance. You're in the Jeet Kune Do stance, and you're just trying to not look for trapping, but look to hit. And the trapping happens because you might have an obstruction or whatever, and you just come in and use it. Not that you're trying to trap for the sake of trapping. So, and then you know, you might have 1 trap, 2 traps, but you don't want to go overboard and start doing 3, 4, 5, 6 traps before you hit the guy. You know. So that's a big difference with JKD. You still have to keep it simple,
right,
and effective. You know.
Right.
So you don't want to lose that structure because you're falling into a structure of an art that's not structurally like Jeet Kune Do 100%.
Yeah, and then the report that it was a strict adherence to Wing Chun structure that prolonged the fight with Wong Jack Man. Do you have a comment on that?
Yeah, I got Bruce Lee in trouble because he was trying to straight blast a guy who was running away from him, and he was straight blasting him in the back of his head. And Wong Jack Man just was running away from Bruce and giving him some finger fans in the back while Bruce was behind him, just doing this to him, you know. And actually caught Bruce on the forehead with it too. You know, but like Leo said, Bruce, you know, you gotta get some variation on your punches, you know.
Right.
Look into some boxing because you could have knocked the guy out with a nice hook. You know. You know, be running away from him.
Yeah. Now, what do you know about the operant conditions surrounding the fight? Because the legend is the whole thing about the teaching of non-Chinese. And then, of course, they put that into the movie, right? Birth of a Dragon. What do you know about the situation that led up to the fight?
Well, there were Chinese people teaching white Americans. I mean, James Lee had Al Novak. He was teaching him Sin Lung Kung Fu. And actually, Al Novak will go with James Lee to the Chinatown in San Francisco and train. So it wasn't, you know, the idea that Bruce Lee was teaching, you know, the Guai Lows, as he said.
Right.
Actually, it was that, you know, Bruce Lee did a demonstration in San Francisco. It's almost the same demo that he did in Long Beach, because Long Beach happened in August of '64.
Right.
And then he got asked to do it in Los Angeles in the same month, August '64. But he did it with Dan. And then he did it in September of '64. He did it with Dan also, but in San Francisco's Chinatown. But the only reason Bruce Lee was doing that was because he was asked to help promote a movie that was being done by an actress named Diana Chang.
Right.
And actually, let's see if I have. Here it is. Let's see if we can get these pictures here. Right there. This is the Sung Sing Theater. There we go. September 5th, 1964. This is when Bruce Lee did the demo with Dan. Let's see if we have some of those pictures here. And there is Diana Chang. She's the one on the other side, right here, the voluptuous one. So she was promoting her movie, okay, and Bruce Lee was asked to dance the cha-cha with her, because I mean, she doesn't know what else to do on stage, you know. So they had a band there, and Bruce was known as a dancer, so they hired him to dance with her, both in LA. It was supposed to be LA, San Francisco, and New York, but he didn't go to the New York one. He just went to LA and San Francisco. And then he agreed to it, but he said, but he would also like to do a Kung Fu demonstration, which they were happy about that too. Here's another a meeting with Bruce there. Okay. And there she is. She's being advertised. See Sung Sing Theater there. So, and here they are. dancing. Let's see if I can put it here. There we are. So Bruce is dancing with her, and then he went and took off his suit and put on his Kung Fu uniform, and went on the mic and started talking about his art.
Right.
Now you have to realize that San Francisco and Oakland are just a bridge away from each other.
Mm-hmm.
So Bruce Lee wanted to advertise his school, which he just opened up in August.
Right.
So the school's been open up for maybe 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah.
So because San Francisco is right across the bay there, he wants to really show his art and tell people, if you want to learn this, come across the bay and come join my school, So that's what he was doing. So Bruce Lee did the same demo he did in Long Beach and he did in LA. It's, he does the Northern Praying Mantis form.
Yeah.
That he learned from Fook Young in Seattle. And Fook Young's another story with Bruce. But anyway, he learned that, and Bruce Lee would do this beautiful praying mantis form, jump in the air, kick his leg, and kick his hand. And everybody would clap. And he said, oh, everybody likes that. And everybody, they clap. And he said, well, that's all junk, because how can you defend yourself doing any of that?
Right.
So now he does that in San Francisco. And San Francisco is where, everybody gets off the boat from Hong Kong or China. And people stay there. And you have all these Chinese Kung Fu schools.
Right.
And Bruce is saying, that stuff is junk, doesn't really work. So, he starts talking about it here, and you could see, let's see, there we are. You can see Dan in the background. Mm-hmm. Actually, the reason he got Dan, because he had just met Dan in Long Beach a few weeks before.
Right.
And he in Long Beach, he had Taki Komura and James Lee demonstrate with him, but this is a few weeks later, and they couldn't get off from work, so he contacted Dan and said, will you demo with me?
Right.
That's why Dan is there demonstrating with him.
And the sound was probably on on summer vacation from school or.
Exactly, you got it. See, so there he is. He's demonstrating with Dan, knocks him down, and does a few things with him, right. And basically these guys took it as an insult, when he did that. And I think even he was even giving out flyers of the school and of his book too, the Chinese Kung Fu book, The Philosophical Arts of Defense, to sell it. So they knew exactly where Bruce Lee was teaching from. They knew his address. So basically some of the people there took an insult to what he was saying. And they wrote him a letter and they sent it to him,
Right. Well, let me ask you this. In your opinion, was what he was saying insulting? Were his words insulting?
If you're learning a classical art, in a traditional art, and somebody on stage is saying that stuff is nonsense because it doesn't work, how can you fight like that in the street? You might take it as an insult.
Right.
So they probably thought, he insulted them. Yeah. And, and when he's inviting people to go to his school, he's probably telling them, they probably interpreting it as like, come to my school if you want to see the real stuff,
Yeah.
So that's that's what happened there as far as that's concerned. And they wrote him a letter to inviting Bruce to San Francisco, back to San Francisco to their social club that they had there. And then he didn't bite, he didn't go. So then eventually they actually challenged him and asked Wok Jiang Mang if he would fight Bruce. Now, remember, Wok Jiang Mang has never seen Bruce, never saw the demo, never met Bruce, doesn't know who he is, anything,
Yeah.
But he challenged him. So
the
rest is history. I think Linda asked Bruce why were they fighting, and I think Bruce probably told Linda that it was because he was teaching Guai Lo's or whatever, which is what Linda told everybody.
Everybody, right?
When she wrote her first book.
Yeah.
Bruce Lee, the Only Man. Actually, she named Wok Jiang Mang by name, and he had a lot of students. This was the Kung Fu time. With Bruce Lee, he had a lot of students, and when she named him by name, he basically tried to sue her because he lost a lot of students. Imagine you're training with Wok Jiang Mang, you find out that Wok Jiang Mang challenged your hero, Bruce Lee.
Right.
And lost.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you know, we have all this drama associated, even in the early days, with our art. So then it's almost like it gives license for the continuation and the perpetuation of drama throughout the generations, instead of people just, you know, focusing on something different, on something else, right? So, so for example, the story behind the closing of the schools, right?
Yes.
So the legend is, I have disbanded my schools because it's whatever the quote is, it's too easy for the students to mistake.
They take the agenda as the truth,
right? Yeah.
And the schedule as the way,
right?
Yeah.
So,
well, it's two things about
it sounds really cool.
Yeah, and if you read people that write about Bruce Lee, they say, and he did something that no other kung fu teacher would do. He disbanded all his schools.
Right. Yeah.
Well, two things about that. First of all, the schools closed because they weren't making any money. Unfortunately, every single one of them. And second of all, they didn't close because they remained open with Taki Komura in the basement of his ShopRite supermarket, James Lee in his garage, and Dan Santo in his backyard. So they were still going on. But commercially, they were closed. As far as commercially trying to make some money. But the thing what happened especially with LA, with Taki always kept the school open. The school in University Way when Bruce Lee left was closed, and Taki brought it back to the basement. So he always had those basement schools. He started in a basement in Chinatown and eventually brought it to his supermarket. But with James Lee, what happened with James Lee is that Bruce Lee was never there in Oakland. He was only there like for 6 months, and then going to Hong Kong for trips and stuff like that.
Right.
Because Bruce Lee's father passed away, and then he got money from the Green Hornet people, and he took his wife and son back to Hong Kong, and he stayed there. So he never spent too much time in Oakland. And because of that, James Lee found himself working and teaching. So the atmosphere of the school wasn't the same with Bruce gone, and eventually he closed the school too. And whatever students, diehard students were left, he taught them from the garage. And then same thing happened in LA because Bruce Lee wasn't taking in any students. And people that have a martial arts school know that you have to take in new students to make up for the ones that leave.
Right.
You have to reciprocate.
I mean, if you're gonna pay the rent, yeah.
It's funny because you look at I like to take pictures of my students every year. It's funny, you look 5 or 6 years later and you completely have changed.
Oh yeah.
The faces. I mean, you have a lot of students, but they're all different from the students that were in the other.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Maybe you might have 5 or 10 diehard students that are still there.
Right.
But the people change, and Bruce Lee wasn't taking in any students. So when one student left for whatever reason, work related or whatever the reason was, there was no one to reciprocate for him.
Back then,
there was no
back then, was there anybody who was teaching professionally as like their sole job? Would like Ed Parker would have been somebody who was doing martial art full time?
Yeah, Ed Parker had a full-time school.
Okay.
Yeah, there were a few karate schools that's all they did. Yeah, that was their full-time job.
Right. Okay. So then, had he wanted, Bruce Lee could have learned from them how to run a profitable school. Especially
Jong Rhee, because Jong Rhee's school was just expanding tremendously.
Yeah.
Every time he went to Washington D.C. to do a demo for Jong Rhee at his tournament, he would see Jong Rhee's school increasing. Right. Meanwhile, his little school in Chinatown is not doing well.
Yeah.
So.
I wonder if they ever had any discussions, where Jong Rhee was trying to give him advice on what to do to build a school.
I think it was the other way around. Bruce Lee was giving John Rhee advice on how to promote himself.
Well, yeah, in the letters and the thing about the TV show, right? The self-defense show.
And he got him in contact with Mito Uehara for the Black Belt magazines and the O'Hara Publications books.
Yeah. Well, this is ironic as hell.
Yeah, because Bruce Lee himself didn't want to go that direction.
Right.
He didn't want to sell books for O'Hara, you know. I don't think he wanted to give the art away like that.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think he wanted to give the art away, you know, when it was such a unique art, and he just didn't want to give it to the public like that. It's just
so that's why he would tell Inosanto to not teach it commercially. Yeah,
well, once the school was closed, he told him, you know, just take a few students back there and and you know, train the students, the diehard students.
Yeah.
And also, you know, Bruce Lee was around the Hollywood crowd, and every student that he was teaching, especially those guys that were paying him, you know,
$275 an hour,
$275 an hour. He realized, you know, it's the movie industry is making money. It's not it's not opening up a karate school or martial arts school and so forth.
Right. Yeah.
You know, for himself, and I don't think he wanted everybody to learn Jeet Kune Do. I mean, imagine how much control he would have lost if he would have expanded 10 or 20 schools, and those students now are teaching other students, and it just would have gone haywire.
Well, it would be like the way it is today.
Yeah. Everybody has their own interpretation. You know? And everybody's saying my teacher is better than your teacher, and your teacher.
and everybody has their own version of the truth and the legend, and what's you know, what's the real meaning behind this saying, and who said what, and whatever. Yeah, it'd be a mess.
Yeah, which is now.
It'd be a little bit of a mess.
And you know, people hoping that with the nucleus it would be controlled, but even the nucleus couldn't agree. You know.
Well, right. Yeah. See, I would love to have been at one of those meetings to hear what they were talking about and the way they were talking about it, because were there any of them who had success in running an organization? Do you know?
Well, Bastillo had the IMB Academy, and he was successful with that. I think the problem with the nucleus was that there was too many chiefs. Because Linda gave everybody a free voice, you know.
Yeah.
And everybody was equal as far as, you know, like Knights of the Round Table. You know, everybody had an equal say.
Yeah.
Where, you know, personally, I believe she should have had the last say. Hear everybody's take on everything, and then she makes the final decision, just like a democracy. You know. But
I bet you somebody would have an objection. You know, you know, well, how much did she train more or study more or longer than
she had a rank too, so oh yeah, she's got the card to prove it.
yeah, that's the other thing that that we don't have it on the list, but that's something that comes up all the time about who was certified to teach and what have you, you know, because they say, okay, well, this guy was given third rank and this guy was put in charge of the school, of running class at the school. So then all of a sudden, third rank becomes the instructor rank.
Yeah, which wasn't.
Right, yeah.
You were just appointed instructor. Here, Bruce Lee had a school and said, okay, who am I going to appoint to teach?
Yeah.
I'll pick you, you know? I mean, a minimal of third rank, obviously, you know, because it means you have to know your stuff. But it didn't mean that you were an instructor because you got third rank, because there were a lot of people in Seattle that had third rank that were not instructors, you know. So that wasn't it. Sorry about that.
Nah, that's right. Right. So again, it is, you know, something about JKD that everybody knows about, right? So it's a well-known aspect of Jeet Kune Do, but then the actual truth behind it is not well known. You know,
as far as
well, in terms of we take, for example, what we just talked about. Bruce Lee closed the schools.
Yes.
That's the legend. And everybody's aware of that. And it's not actually true. Or the reasoning behind it.
Right.
Right? What we were told is not really
what it sounds nice.
It does.
That's why I say you hear all these documentaries and they go, and he did something that no other instructor ever did. He calls the schools and everybody goes, wow, you know.
That's and there's a new documentary coming out in a few weeks, right?
ESPN, yes, June 6th. What
are your expectations?
Well, let's see how good it is. You know, I don't know. I hope it's true to. I'm sure there's going to be mistakes on it, like all of them. You know, there's always a mistake. They probably say that he fought Wok Jang Man because he was teaching Guai Los and maybe
I wonder if there will be any
maybe they'll. I'm sorry.
I wonder if there will be any new material.
Maybe they'll have Chuck Norris there and he'll tell everybody that he taught Bruce Lee how to kick high. You know.
Yeah. Right.
There's that third generation.
But that's another one. You know.
Here's a picture of Bruce meeting Chuck Norris at Henry Cho's tournament in New York City in June 24th, 1967. This is the first time they meet.
Right.
And there's Bruce in 1966, March, throwing high kicks against Kato.
Yeah. And again, you know, it's like I was talking about how sometimes a lot of the answers to questions in JKD have been staring us in the face for a long time, but people just don't know how to see it.
How about the one with simple attacks versus single attack?
Right.
How many times you open the Dao and you see it right in front of you, it says simple angular attack. And then you go to a seminar and everybody goes, single angular attack. And you go, nobody says anything, you know?
Yeah.
And you're wondering, okay, something's wrong here. Everybody keeps calling it single.
Yeah.
Magazine articles.
Yeah.
People write books.
Well, I have a theory. I have a theory behind that.
Okay.
And my theory, right, is that, so for example, let's say I go bang, and then I go bang again. So those are two simple attacks. But they also happen to be two single motions, right? So I think that somewhere somebody heard simple, right? Somebody said simple, somebody heard single, and that's how they got mixed up.
All the initials were used. SAA, SDA.
Yeah.
We'll do SDA today. SDA. After a while, people think, oh, SDA is single instead of simple.
Yeah, because if you do more than one, right? Yeah, no. I know exactly what, because I am had to be re-educated about that, because I had seen simple in the Tao, but I heard single over and over and over and over again.
And when you see people teaching it or writing about it in books, they refer to it as the single direct attack, or the single angular attack. Has to be the quickest attack you can do, because you only have one shot and that's it. And then you have to follow it up with attack by combinations. So that alone is telling you something wrong, because if it's a simple attack, you could do several simple attacks. You know, look at a boxer when he's jabbing to the face, jabbing to the stomach. You know,
right? It's not combination.
They're doing simple attacks. You know, us, we would add a kick there, we would punch, move around, back fist, come back. They're all simple attacks.
Yeah, but I think that is where the confusion, let's call it, set in, because it's like I went like that, and then I went like that, and then I went like, so it was just like one stroke. So the one stroke is the thing that it's the single attack. Right?
Yes, but what happens is once you had generations teaching it, generations later teaching it, they say it's a one-shot deal.
Yeah. Well, of course. Of course.
You learned it as a single attack. And now because you learned it as a single attack, you think you got one shot and that's it.
Yes.
After that, you got to follow up with combinations.
Yes. Because see, right. I don't know. I don't know what in psychology they would call this, but it's like, since I learned it this way, now I have to embellish. I have to build a whole system of understanding around how I learned it. You see? So now now I have to somehow justify my misunderstanding. So I build a story around it. So for example, if we go back to what we talked about, here's Bruce Lee with 2 sticks. That's the evidence that he studied, right? Filipino martial arts. You see, it can't just be, no, I think I like how this would look on camera.
Correct.
Especially if I'm fighting a bunch of guys. This will give me a tactical advantage. Right? So what if he said, okay, Inosano, show me something. Okay, I like that one. All right, show me again. Okay, so you go like this. Okay, got it. Boom, done. That's the study, right? Of Filipino.
Or just observed.
Yeah.
You know, Bruce Lee's ego was very high too. You know, he's not show me, but you do it. I want to look at it, you know? I mean, if you look at the whole Game of Death scene, you know, Bruce Lee's actually putting down the solid stick versus the little flexible.
Yeah, the wick stick, the bamboo stick.
Yeah, the wick, and he's wicking and he's saying, you know, this has more flexibility than your solid stick. So he's almost like putting it down if you think about it, you know,
right?
Because he's trying to say my bamboo whip is flexible and can adapt to your solid stick hitting, you know,
right?
You know, so it looks good in the movies, you know. So
yeah, oh for sure.
But going back to that thing with the simple and the single, you know, it confused a lot of people, especially when I told people, you know, simple attacks can be more than one, you know. And they go, what? What do you mean simple attack can be more than one? You know, they didn't understand it. But you know, when you put in the analogy of a boxer who's constantly jabbing, then you realize what a simple attack is, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And then actually, I think you know, since you saw my interview with Vincent, that we were talking about how Bruce Lee started with the 4 ways of attack.
Yeah.
And then he went to the 5 ways of attack.
Yeah.
You know, so he added that attack by drawing at the end. But it's still, you know, when you were saying the stuff that's right in front of you, plain and simple, and people don't see it, you know, and think about, you know, how the Tao, all the time in the Tao has been written simple attacks, and nobody ever took a time to look at that and say, wait a minute,
right? Something
is different here.
Well, I mean, that's one reason is because nobody ever taught from the Tao. You know what I mean?
You know, it's funny because when I was researching the 5 ways of attack, this is when it hit me, you know. You know, the first time that the word single comes out, right here. It's in Dan's book, 1976. This is the first time anybody ever. Ooh, let's see if I can get it right there.
Yeah.
And it says single. So we know, you know, so that's the earliest that I've seen when it came out. And this book came out a year later after the Tao. But when I was researching it, this is where it hit me because of the fencing. In the fencing, you know, they say there's only 2 types of attack: simple and compound.
And compound, right?
And that's where that. So I'm saying, well, where the heck is the single? You know, I'm looking at all the fencing books that Bruce Lee had, you know, in my library, and that's when I realized that. You know, open the Tao, you know, and you say, oh, there it is.
Right.
So the truth hits you. I mean, I told Sifu Ted about it, and he went, I'll get back to you about that. He calls me up at my house like I think like a week later, goes, you know, Richard, you're right.
Right.
you're freaking right. You're right.
Yeah.
You know, which was nice for him. You know?
That's hilarious. Yeah. I mean, you know, I think that as we spend time, as we continue to dig into this JKD thing, we might find more and more of examples of this kind of thing, where it's like, oh, well, I always thought that so and so, and then you're like, no, it was never that way, right? You know, and so like dummy sets, right? Okay, how much dummy did Bruce Lee know?
I think he improvised a lot on the dummy. You know, Alan Joe, when he went to Seattle to meet Bruce for the first time, he said Bruce Lee took him to the back of Ruby Chow's restaurant and started doing some dummies, moving around with the dummy and hitting it. And he thought, you know, he said, wow, this guy knows his stuff. So I think he improvised a lot on the dummy and used, you know, whatever Wing Chun he knew on the dummy.
Right.
As far as the set is concerned, obviously, you know, people say he never learned the set, you know. Meanwhile, what did he do? He trained 5 years with Yip Man, Wong Shan Long, William Chung, and Yip Man's assistant. So 4 people trained him for 5 years. And knowing how quick Bruce Lee picks up things, you know. So whether he learned the set or not is really not relevant, because obviously he's not teaching Jeet Kune Do. He's teaching Jeet Kune Do now.
He's not teaching Wing Chun. Yeah.
Oh, excuse me. Yes, he's not teaching Wing Chun. Right. But that whole Jungfang dummy set, or Jungfang Gunfu dummy set, was not from Bruce Lee. Obviously, it was Dan that did that. Right. And he said that he put together a set that Bruce Lee for moves that Bruce Lee taught him on the dummy. So whatever Bruce Lee did on the dummy and showed Dan eventually put it together as a set.
Right.
And taught it as Jungfang Jeet Kune Do dummy set. Yeah. And then what happens? You have all these people going and saying, this is Bruce Lee's dummy set, you know. See, you know, but Bruce Lee himself, you know, when you're training 5 years, that's a long time in any art, you know. Yeah. So to say that he didn't know any dummy set is kind of questionable. You know, he could have learned parts of it too. You know, he could have learned parts of this. You know,
something like that actually has happened to me, because I took some stuff that came in the Thai boxing, and I created a set from the Thai boxing. And then it hasn't happened too often, but years later, I heard about this Muay Thai set. And I was like, well, where's it? What, you know, and people said that it came from Ajahn Chai.
And it was your set, right?
And it was my set.
This is what I'm saying. Right? Imagine the control Bruce Lee would have lost if he would have allowed Jeet Kune Do to be taught in a lot of schools, and then students are teaching it, and he wouldn't have had that control that I guess he wanted for his art.
Yeah, he probably did. Yeah.
You know, and would have lost it. I mean, it's different, like say for Joan Reed, I had a Taekwondo school, because Taekwondo is this and is that, you know. You know, white belt is this, yellow belt is that, you know, so forth. Orange belt is that, and there's the forms, and there's a set curriculum, and you don't deviate from it. Right. You know, that's different. But when you have on a live art like Jeet Kune Do, it's very easy for it to go haywire in many different directions.
Do you know that the Taekwondo people at one point, do you know that they had problems growing the school, because they didn't have anything in terms of like what to teach? Do you ever hear that?
No, never heard that. Yeah. I just know that the Japanese controlled all the karate schools, and then the Koreans came, very well controlled, business like. Right. And they hit that kids market like nobody else did, you know?
Yeah.
Not even the Japanese did, you know? And they milked it for all it was worth. And now we have, you know, the after-school daycare schools, you know, that
yeah,
pick up the kids in school and teach them and so forth.
That's my understanding. That in the early days, they struggled a little bit with curriculum stuff, right? Because after you got they had all that stuff worked out up to like first degree black belt, and then that was it, you know. And so imagine how much harder it would be for a JKD guy who doesn't even have a curriculum, right? You know. What did Ted Wong work with you on curriculum stuff, or did you come up with your own curriculum?
I came up with my own curriculum. He didn't work with curriculum with any of us. Some of the guys, I know one guy in particular that did a curriculum, and he told me he was one of the older guys too. And he told me I didn't like his curriculum. He put too much in there, you know. And I said, really?
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, I didn't like his curriculum at all.
Yeah.
And I was surprised because this guy was very close with Sifu Ted.
Right.
But you know, he taught the art, and you know, I remember telling Sifu Ted, you know, you should write a book. You know, you should write a book on the art. You should write a book on your relationship with Bruce Lee. And he said, no, I'm going to let my students do that if they want to do it. I'm not going to do it. You know. So he left us now. So let's see what happens. You know, but yeah, he you know, he taught the art, and I guess if you're going to teach it, you know, it's one thing you learn an art, but it's another thing when you're going to teach the art, because now you have to, you know, put a curriculum. You have to also conceptualize it up here and how to teach it. You know.
Can you tell me a little bit about what your concept was in designing curriculum?
I tried for the, you know, I have the beginners, the intermediate, and the advanced, as I call it, you know, the first, second, and third. But I try to keep it simple for the beginners, so that they're not too mechanical because they're thinking too much about everything, you know.
Right.
So so with them, you know, we try to keep it simple as far as some of the tools that we use as far as punching and kicking is concerned. You know, and then by the time they get to a second level or intermediate, then we start making them a little more mobile and teaching the footwork and teaching them evasiveness and things like that, and how to become elusive, you know, with the head and with the body.
Yeah. And
then by the time they get to the higher level, it's all about street fighting. That's
and that I've seen pictures. Yeah, I've seen pictures of fight night or the sparring night at your school. That's not available to everybody, right? You have to put in the time before you get to the sparring, right?
That is correct. Yeah, a beginner will never spar.
Right.
You know, he has to work his tools yet, because a lot of stuff has to come out natural from drilling. You know, the last thing you want is, you know, somebody just going crazy and swinging wild because he's being attacked or something, and he just wants to survive. Right. You know. Hey, go ahead.
No, finish. I just thought it was something crazy.
I always love watching these videos of people fighting, especially in Asia. You know, I'm still waiting for a guy to go into a praying mantis stance or a tiger stance and fight when they're fighting for real. You know, they all just wailing away and beating the heck out of each other. You know. Yeah. You know, all that fanciness goes out the door. You know.
All right, I got two crazy questions for you. One, has anybody ever come to your school and asked you about forms?
They've asked me if we do forms.
Yeah.
And I said we do formless forms. Playing with the words, right?
Yeah, right.
That's what no, but we tell them we don't do any katas or anything like that. We told them we do a lot of drilling because we want to work instinct.
Okay.
No.
Yeah. What about challenges? If you want to tell me any stories about
what, if anybody challenged me?
Yeah, like people showing up and they're like, oh well, this and that and whatever.
No, I never had anybody come and challenge me. Got into a couple of scuffles people want to fight, but
right. Well, yeah.
But no, you know, it's kind of I think when people see your confidence, they kind of whittle away. You know, I mean, you know, when people start saying things to you, they want to get a reaction from you. You know?
Yeah.
I always tell that to my students. You know, when somebody comes up to you and says your mother's ugly, you know, don't react the way they want you to react. You know?
Right. Yeah.
You know, say, oh yeah, yeah, you're right, she is ugly. You know, then they look stupid because they don't know how to react to that. You know, but they expect you to go, what did you say? Let's go outside. You know, and, you know. So you learn how to deflate a situation. You know, and
right,
and dissolve it.
What so you said that Tuesdays, twice a week, you've been doing the online class, and one class is the reading of the Tao.
The intellectual aspect of it, yeah.
Yeah. Did you start right at the beginning, or did you start in the middle, or how did you set that up?
No, just different subjects that I want to cover.
Okay.
Down, you know. So whatever subject I have in mind, I'll just look at the Tao and see what I'm gonna cover with the students.
Right.
Because we rarely have a chance to sit down and read it, you know, because we're always doing the physical aspect, like you say, beating each other up.
Right. Yeah.
But now with this stay at home thing, you know, we're taking advantage of it. And
do you think you might keep it after you reopen? You think you might keep it and find a way to put it into the schedule?
From the feedback that I'm getting from the students, they love it, you know. So we probably can, you know, sit down and do that too. You know, it could be part of the curriculum too. Yeah.
You know, my senior Cass Magda, Cass has, I think maybe it's just on the weekends or what have you, but they have what they call the cultural class, you know, or the classical stuff. And what's funny is that a couple of weeks ago, when I was doing the I Love Jeet Kune Do broadcast, and I was showing people the stuff that I got from Richard Bustillo, that's where I realized that that they actually have a section for the curriculum called the classical martial arts. You know, so it was like traditional Villa-Brill, Kali, and what have you. And I was like, oh, I guess that might be where Cass got it from. So I think we could adopt something like that, and our cultural class or classical class becomes the study of the Tao, the
history of the art too.
Yeah. Right. You know, is it a requirement for everybody to purchase a copy of the Tao?
I advise them to do it or get the PDF version on the computer. We live in a world of computers. You got to remember that.
I know. Right. Yeah.
But I say it's an advantage for them if they do. You know.
Yeah.
A lot of people pick up the Tao and don't understand it. You know.
Well, because it's not a how-to book, and
yes,
most people. Yeah. Well, right. Exactly. Right. Most people think first of all, it's Bruce Lee's book. So if Bruce Lee had a style and there's a book on the style by Bruce Lee, this must be the book on how to do the style.
The style, yes. And then they get left cold because they realize, I don't understand this.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't say step 1 is this and step 2 is that and what have you. In the Ted Wong world, right? Like I asked you about confusion about who he was and what he taught, and you know, I mean, if he himself never designed a curriculum, how would his students know what he wanted taught and how he wanted it taught? And like, did he leave like a hierarchical structure, like who's in charge or whatever? Did he ever organize it that way?
No,
not really. He's very Bruce Lee then.
Well, Sifu Ted, a lot of the guys, got along very, very well. They were almost like, we're all like Jeet Kune Do brothers.
Mm-hmm.
The majority, anyway, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Sifu Ted, he liked to keep things simple.
Right.
He was always, simplicity is the key. He was always talking about how simple, keep it simple, keep it simple. And I think depending on how long you train with him, you can create a curriculum. Obviously,
right,
if you only were with him for a year, it might be difficult compared to guys that have been with him since the 90s.
Right.
Because eventually, you kind of get it.
Yeah.
Or where he was coming from. But I always say that Sifu Ted always told me anyway that what he wants to teach is Bruce Lee's art. Not Ted Wong's art, but Bruce Lee's art.
Mm-hmm.
That's what. This is what he told me. That he was teaching the art taught to him by Bruce Lee.
Right.
Now obviously everybody starts giving things names again. Here we go with the names.
Yeah.
And then it starts separating instead of uniting.
Yeah. When people talk about, for example, because there is the expression Ted Wong Jeet Kune Do, and I'm like, well, again, I think that doesn't clarify anything. I think that confuses people. And then you get people talking about how, everybody has their own Jeet Kune Do.
Yeah, well, if you're going to teach it, you better teach the complete art and allow your students to have their own Jeet Kune Do.
Yeah.
It's different when you're a student, when you're a teacher, you see? Because as the instructor...
I was going to ask you about that, because if we go back where we pretty much started, to research your own experience, absorb what is useful, reject what is useless, add what is specifically your own. Is there a difference in applying that if you're an instructor running a school or a group, and if you're a student, in your mind, would there be a difference?
Yeah, because as a student, you're going to have your own preferences of what works for you. See, because of your body type. I have some guys that can kick your head faster than you can block.
Yeah.
And then there's other guys that can't lift the leg above the weight.
Right. Yeah.
It's just the way it is,
Yeah.
So they're obviously going to have their own preferences. So as a student, you can go that direction and stay with your preferences and just do that. But now, if you decide you're going to teach the art, you should teach the total art and allow the student to evolve into his own preferences.
So then does that mean then that you have to teach the kick to the head and the low kick?
No, it means that you have to teach, you can teach the kick to the head, but if the student can't do it, then you say, okay, well, at least try do this. But obviously, if that student ever decides to teach, he's going to have to be able to teach a kick to the head. And everybody thinks, Jeet Kune Do does not have high kicks, I love when people say that. I say, you're right, Jeet Kune Do have no high kicks, so don't defend from them. Don't worry. I'm not going to kick you high.
Right. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So you have to teach, the total art as far as, the total martial arts, Jeet Kune Do, which is, I think it should have just been the science of martial arts, instead of calling it Jeet Kune Do,
Okay. All right. I don't know if I ever told you this, but to me, philosophically, the interception, the stop hit, is the highest level. So philosophically, studying Jeet Kune Do, applying Jeet Kune Do, is about studying to operate at your own personal highest level in all things.
Yeah, depending on what the highest level for you is, though.
Well, yeah. Right?
you have to guard against just doing something over and over again too, because then that, you know, what does Bruce Lee say, becomes a disease.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
he also said you got to do the one kick 10,000 times.
Did he say that?
Hey, it's on the internet. All right.
Hey, I tried that, and I lost count at 6,745. And then that's actually physically impossible. You know that, right? Because you do that, you're gonna lose. You're gonna hurt your muscles.
Well, I mean, not only that, right? Not only that, the other part of it, right? Fearing not the man who has trained, 10,000 kicks once. Where do these 10,000 kicks come from? There's that many kicks in the world?
Well, unless you get ornamental, Yeah.
I don't know, man. I think you have a hard time. But and look, I studied.
It's been all over the internet. It's been all over the internet. It must be true,
but
right?
I studied from, kicking from Chong Lee. I studied kicking from Bill Wallace. I studied kicking from James Liu. I studied kicking from George Chung and Cynthia Rothrock, right? I never came across 10,000 different kicks.
Remember when Inside Karate, or I think it was Inside Kung Fu, had the 5 different styles, and they would show the front kick from 5 different styles, and they would do the side kick from 5 different, and it didn't vary much, obviously,
right. I remember one where they were showing probably the first kata from maybe a Taekwondo system, a Japanese system, and an Okinawan system. Mm-hmm. And there was like this much difference.
Mm-hmm. Because somebody else went from that style and created his own style and put that in the style that he created.
Yeah.
You're always going to have different of opinions, and that's okay. That's human nature.
Yeah, but that's fine.
It's human nature to have difference of opinion. If you understand that, you don't get angry with someone who has a different opinion of you, that you don't have,
Right.
But when you understand it, you don't go crazy about it, but you're not going to agree 1,000,000% with everything that's being taught to you, because you're a human being, and you're obviously going to question things and say, well, I like it this way, I like it, so it's okay, it's okay. But but to think that there's difference, there's 10,000 kicks, or 10,000 kicks one time. Obviously, what it's trying to say is that a guy who's a jack of all trades and a master of none, that's is not going to work in Jeet Kune Do,
Right.
So it's better to master,
or don't mistake that to be the Jeet Kune Do approach.
Correct.
Right.
So you have to do something over and over and over again to get good at it.
Right.
But it doesn't mean to add. And there we go again with the word "add," as we started from the beginning.
Yeah.
Add more and more and more.
Yeah. Another time, I'll give you my breakdown on what the 4 tenets actually mean, right? Because to me, it's not at all surface level, like the literal meaning of the word, right? But we'll do that another time. I wanted to finish with this though, because we touched on it briefly about Sifu Ted never had an organization or what have you, but within martial art families, there's always dispute over this and dispute over that, right? What is your strategy? Because you're a well-known figure, so obviously, like my friend, I had a jujitsu friend who was this guy was a renegade, right? And he was the first person I ever heard say, a black guy, right? He said, haters gonna hate. He's the first guy I ever heard say that, right?
Haters don't hate?
Haters are gonna hate.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Go ahead.
Okay. So I want to know about your psychological strategy. And I think you just touched on it there, because you said there's always going to be difference of opinion, but having a difference of opinion doesn't mean, that it has to go. Right. Exactly. Yeah. Right. So that's part of your strategy for dealing with, because you're a controversial guy, whether you know it or not.
Right? You must be doing something right when you got controversy coming your way, right?
Right.
It's part,
but,
you know, there's controversy in everything. I mean,
yeah,
in the music industry, the acting industry, you know, martial arts, whatever, you know, it's human tendency to divide.
mm-hmm.
And this is what I'm saying. You have to understand this. If you understand this, you don't get overly angry over it because you understand it.
Right.
So I say it's human tendency to divide. So first you have, you know, the Jeet Kune Do group versus the traditional martial art group. You know, and everybody go, oh, the Jeet Kune Do versus the Krav Maga, the Jeet Kune Do versus, you know, whatever. And then the Jeet Kune Do guys are all united. Oh, the Jeet Kune Do guys are up there. Then within the Jeet Kune Do group, you're gonna have divisiveness.
Right.
Oh, our Jeet Kune Do teacher is better than your Jeet Kune Do teacher. And then within the teachers groups, you're gonna have divisiveness. And you see it all the time. It's not just martial arts. You see it in everything, whether it's religion or...
Yeah, it's human nature, as you say.
It's human nature. So if you understand it, you don't take it too seriously. The problem is when somebody takes it overly seriously and starts attacking you unjustly, and then you go, you know, now I'm going to have to counter back, you know, because I don't really want to get into this, you know. I mean, everybody can live their lives and enjoy it, you know. But there's always someone who wants to just stick it to you, you know, and you try to avoid it until, you know, eventually you can't no more, you know. So I mean, that's just human nature, you know.
Do you have a formula that you would give to people? And if somebody comes to you, or if somebody hears what you just said,
mm-hmm.
and sends you a message saying, well, I want you to tell me how to do that, how to not take it too seriously. Do you have a formula that you can pass on?
I would say you have to understand it. You have to understand that it's human nature for people to do that. And when you understand it, you catch yourself, you know, and you say, hey, you know, this is not the way to go, because you catch yourself, because you understand that it's human nature to do that, you know, no matter what, no matter what it is. You know, like I said, I gave examples, you know, with music industry, you know, you have musical artists against each other. Why? Because they're in the same industry, you know.
Right.
Actors and martial artists. But you know,
so you try to catch yourself and stop yourself from doing the same thing.
Yeah, because what you do is you look at it and you say to yourself, okay, you know, when I used to go to a philosophy class in college, believe it or not, our teacher, the professor, used to do circles. And he goes, okay, this is you, and within this circle, you're a little bit of in this circle, you're a little bit in that circle, you're a little bit of that. And he says, but what happens is that people decide to divide.
Right.
You know, so no matter what you're in, there's a tendency to divide. And the example I gave was, like I said, you know, Jeet Kune Do is the best art there is because Bruce Lee did it and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, then you have the other side, well, you know, Taekwondo guys are tough, or, you know, karate, you know, they can, and you know, oh, no, but Jeet Kune Do is better. And here you have the whole Jeet Kune Do group here, you know. And then within the Jeet Kune Do group, then you'll have separation there, right?
Right. Yeah.
You see it in religion too.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, for sure.
Christians versus Muslims versus Jews, and then what happens within the Christian community? Then you have Baptists, born again, you know, Lutherans, whatever, and then within their group, there's divisiveness. This church, that church, and sometimes they even separated by race or something. You know, it's just
right. Okay, this will be the absolute last question then.
Okay.
Where would you send somebody to learn what Bruce Lee's opinion on everything you just said was? Where would you send somebody to learn what Bruce Lee's opinion on all that was?
On the philosophy?
Yeah, on the stuff that you just talked about, on identifying that human condition and learning to rise above it.
I think John Little did a good job with Striking Thoughts and the Artist of Life.
That's my answer.
Because, you know, those books help you understand human nature.
Yeah. Believe
it, it could even help your marriage. Because because you understand human nature, and you go, okay, you know,
Right.
you don't react to it in a negative way because you understand it.
Right.
See?
Hey, man, that's what makes Jeet Kune Do the total art, like you called it.
Yeah, it does.
Right.
There's more than
Yeah.
just the physical. There's the intellectual, and there's, you know, the mental and the
Sweet.
philosophical.
Okay.
It's a
All
great
right.
art.
Let's close this up. Tell everybody where's the best place to get in touch with you.
Well, I'm here on Facebook at JKD Martial Arts. We have a page here, JKD Martial Arts, and you can message me. You know, if you look for me, and you can message me there. The website is www.jkdmartialarts.com. So either way, you know, I'm visible on Facebook, so it's very easy to contact me.
That's an understatement.
Yeah, so you
Yeah.
can see me there, you know.
All right.
But this
Okay.
was fun, you know. It's nice to talk about, you know, what people take for granted and realize don't take it for granted because it's not true, you know.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and that's why I said it, right. Imagine it's, you know, somebody complained that I only ever have Inasano people on the program, and I'm thinking, you must be watching some other program. Right?
Yeah, I'm not an innocent person. Yeah.
So we won't tell them that. I think the first time you and I met physically was at an Inasano seminar, though, right?
I think so. Yeah, that you saw me there and you said, "What is Richard Torres doing here?" Right? Isn't that a Tech 1 student? Little did you know that I knew that, right? Actually, this is his book, right? Wait, let's see if I can put it here. Where are we? Here.
Yep.
I think. Let's see. Yeah. Oh, there it is.
There you go. Hey, man. Right.
I know that.
Yeah, but see, that's the thing, right? I think that people think that there's more difference between us than there actually is. I think there's more commonality. But people just don't talk about it.
So there's that old saying: "Don't look at what divides us, but what unites us."
Yeah, that's a Tulsi Gabbard saying.
Yeah, and what unites us is the art of Jeet Kune Do.
There you go.
And realize that it's very easy to continue dividing, but stop dividing because you have to understand it.
That's the most important part there, my friend.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay, cool. All right, man. Thanks for doing this. All right.
Okay, no problem.
Okay. You have a great weekend.
Yeah.
I'll see you soon. Okay.
What t-shirt is it today? Let's see your t-shirt.
No, I don't do the t-shirt on the dialogues. I do the t-shirt on the t-shirt on the broadcast.
I wore this just for you.
Yeah, no, this is one of my Italian shirts.
This is Bruce Lee's actual illustration. His brother
Robert. I recognized it. Yeah.
His brother Robert put these out.
Nice. Nice. You're so the man, Richard.
I work for you. Now I have a class to teach in about 13 minutes. So.
Oh yeah, it's Friday night. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, look. Hey, have fun, man.
Okay. You take care.
My week starts now.
Okay. Yeah, it starts. Take care.
Okay. All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
All right. That was Richard Torres, episode number 127 of the Jeet Kune Do Dialogues. All right, so feel free, share, like, comment, ask questions. Sifu Richard and I will go through and answer anything if necessary. Follow me on Twitter at Dwight Woods and on Instagram at Dwight D. Woods. I love JeetKuneDo.com. The Quick Skills Series Volume 1 still available. Volume 2 will be produced sometime in 2020. Coming up next Friday, same JKD time, 6 p.m., episode 128 with Sifu Alex Richter of City Wing Chun and Jeet Kune Do fame. So that'll be next Friday. So I'll see some of you then. Rest of you, maybe I'll see you Wednesday. We might do Wednesday 3 p.m. again for the I Love Jeet Kune Do broadcast, but of course I'll let you know about that early in the week, right? Until then, this is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Do Rebel, signing off. Everybody enjoy your weekend. Stay safe, stay sane, stay happy, stay healthy. See you soon. Take care.
Hello, everyone. I want to talk about the influences that Bruce Lee's three main students that were actually participating in tournaments, how they influenced Bruce Lee a bit. And you had Joe Louis, Chuck Norris, and Mike Stone were the three that Bruce Lee was training, and at the time they were all champions in the tournament circuit. So Joe Louis influenced Bruce because Joe Louis had this guard here, and you can see this a lot in Bruce Lee's movies where he has this guard a lot and he uses it in his movie. We know Jeet Kune Do is here, but for the movies, Bruce Lee likes to put his hand down sometimes like this, and you can see that when he had that stance there. Chuck Norris used to do a lot of spinning kicks. So he influenced Bruce because Chuck used to do the spinning back kick there, and that was a big influence on Bruce, and he too started doing spinning kicks. All right, and then Mike Stone had a nice combination that he used to do at tournaments, which was a rising front kick and a hook kick, where he would go here and then he'd kick up there. Okay, and that influenced Bruce also because you could see it in Wayne the Dragon, a couple of movies that he would use it, and he'd just go here and he'd kick. You already see that? Okay, so he kicked here and then here, and what you will see here is basically this can be used when you motor set the opponent to being kicked in the groin here, okay? And he thinks here you are, and then suddenly you come here and up there, okay? So the kick itself will go here, here. So you're going for groin and a hook kick at the same time. So basically, it's a low-high kick, all right? And again, another influence from Mike Stone. The kick itself is very good. Okay, people say, oh, in Jeet Kune Do you don't kick high. And we kick from the body down, but once in a while you can surprise an opponent with a high kick. Okay, I love when people believe we don't kick high, because they say, yeah, we only kick low, we kick down here. Yeah, we only kick down here, and bam, there he goes. Okay, so try it and see if it works for you. All right, thank you.